All right, so as you can see, already gone through the process of, disassembling, pulling all the parts out, chemically stripping, sandblasting. These have been outgassed, cleaned up, all that. They're all masked off. Same as always, plugs and all threaded holes, all that shenanigans. First step of the two-stage that we're doing on this is like a black metallic. I think it's actually called black metallic. I'll put that right here somewhere. Spraying it at 45 kV as recommended by Prismatic. I've had a couple people ask me about kV and how it's relative. I have a video that I'm going to work on that involves that, but Prismatic on all their stuff has an application guide that tells you the recommended kV. So if some of you guys haven't noticed that, it's there. So what we're going to do first is we're going to spray this area down in the black. Some people choose to do the whole caliper. It depends on the color that's going over top. Over the top of this is Cosmic Pretty Pink, so it's not a color that lets stuff bleed through or show through much. So I'm just going to do black in this one area, and that'll go into the oven to cure. So throw the collector on here, set the kV. And all you're really worried about is the surface area where this logo is going to end up going. The rest of this isn't going to matter too much as far as application. I do want to keep it off of these bolt heads for now. So I just blow those off real quick, no big deal. I just don't want to have multiple layers stacked on the bolt heads. So now that that's like that, we'll throw this in the oven to start the cure process and go on to the next one. And what I was saying about doing, coating the whole caliper this first stage color versus just the area where I want the logo, there are certain colors that are of course going to be affected by the coat underneath them. The one that I'm using is not, but if you're doing this with a color that doesn't interact well or shows a variation, whereas if you put black only in this area and then you put the next coat over top, you'll be able to tell where all the black was, then obviously you're going to need to spray that out. The downside of that is that you're going to need to figure out what colors do that for you and what don't. I mean, I have some kind of general rules that I go by with it, or for it, but they're very general. I mean, ultimately it's very much a trial and error type thing. Okay, so now onto the rear calipers. Same thing, masked the same way. Already have my bolts put in the back, even though they're not going this base color. They'll end up being the top coat, like I said, the Cosmic Pretty Pink. But process is exactly the same. Just want to make sure you get a nice decent coat on that front area. Once again, me blowing this bolts off is just because I don't want to stack multiple coats on there, just as far as assembly goes. So, got one more of these. And if you guys came across this video, but don't know how to take apart the brakes or have seen the masking process for the brakes, I have a couple videos here on my channel that show that exact process, start to finish. Shows full brake rebuilds, how to disassemble, reassemble, what areas are masked versus not masked. All right, and this is the logo that we're going to be doing. This is just obviously just a Brembo logo. This piece here will be for the front, and then we're just doing just the flower on the rear calipers. So like I said, standard Brembo logo, got the cherry blossom flower. These are going on like a cherry blossom themed car. I make everything in Illustrator. You don't necessarily have to do that. There's tons of softwares out there that will do this, including the software that comes with the plotter. I've had some people ask me about my plotter. This is the one I use for almost everything. It's just a US cutter. It's the MH871 MK2. I think it cuts like 30 inches wide or something. I actually don't remember. 34 inches, something ridiculous. I cut almost only 15-inch vinyl in it though. So we'll get this sent over to the software and into the plotter and show you guys that process, and then have to weed it out. Alright, so next step is going to be weeding out the vinyl. You only have to do this, of course, if you cut your own vinyl. If you're getting these logos or something from somebody else, all this stuff should be done already. But all you're doing is removing all the excess vinyl. Pretty straightforward process here. So just grab each little piece. I use an X-Acto or a straight blade. They actually make pick tools specifically for this if you want to do it. As far as the vinyl color, I actually use this silver. It seems like it holds up a little bit better as you pull it off after you heat it up, which we'll get to here in just a minute. The metallic colors, both the gold and the silver, seem to work out better from everything I've noticed. So, like I said, you just remove all the excess. These ones over here are all garbage that was cut into my test cut there. And I usually make a few extra just in case. Usually have extra space on the vinyl anyway, so it makes sense to do it that way. Go like that. And this is I mean, for me, this is a very quick and easy thing. I worked in the sign industry for a number of years, so I've done this a lot. Like I said, I cut extra ones of these. I end up just weeding them all at the exact same time, just to make life a little easier. Tape them all at the same time as well. And then even these ones over here that have been ruined, you might as well weed the parts that are usable in case for some reason you end up needing those pieces. Which you shouldn't, right? Because everything always goes perfect every time. So let's see. Get rid of all this extra stuff that's just lingering here. Alright, next up is taping them. Alright, as far as taping goes, I mean, it's also pretty straightforward. I've seen a little bit of debate about the proper masking tape to use for doing this stuff. There are people that claim that this transfer-right stuff that I prefer to use leaves like an adhesive, or leaves something. Nobody ever really says it's adhesive, but you could see every place that it's stuck as you were putting the vinyl down. I have never had that issue on a part, but I have seen multiple people complain about it. Now, could be multiple people who have never actually done it and are just going off something they read on the internet like I'm doing right now, but who really knows? Once you're all taped up here, just cut your logo out, or your logos out. And I try to cut the lines like fairly straight. It's just, it helps you with lining stuff up a little bit. Oh, of course I do that. But all this stuff is pretty forgiving, so to line it up a little bit, I mean, it helps. But as long as you're not paying attention to the tape line, you're actually paying attention to the vinyl that you're putting on, the logo or whatever it might be, then you should be golden. So we'll cut the rest of these out so they are ready. I mean, we only need 2 of the big flowers and 2 of the Brembo logos, so obviously I have way too many, but as you can see, I already had like wasted vinyl space anyway, so it didn't really matter. Oh, let me cut that one. And I skipped all the stuff that was normally would be in these videos, like the blasting and the prep and all that, just because I just did a brake video, so I figured you guys don't need to see all that exact same thing over and over and over. Can't be any fun. Alright, we'll grab the brakes and start putting these things on. Alright, I brought one of each of the front and one rear, obviously, one of each, into here to show you guys this process, just because it's real hot in the shop. That's legitimately the reason. It's way too hot in the shop. It's over 100 degrees here today. No effective way of cooling the shop down, minus the swamp cooler, but I don't want to deal with all the humidity. So, we got our black partially cured on here, black metallic in this case. Got our vinyl ready to go on. Hopefully this is all, yeah, this is mostly in shot. And you're just going to line it up. You have this straight line for the bleeders, so you have at least an idea of where it goes. There's also a line here and a line here that define kind of the edges of this, so you can center it. And you want to touch the caliper as little as possible when you're putting this on. So try to keep your hand mostly just touching the tape, just because like with anything else, you don't want to have fingerprint anything that you're doing powder coating wise. Put that down. Rub it. Ooh. You want to make sure that you rub this down. You can use a squeegee. I tend to not use a squeegee when I'm doing it on calipers like this, because I don't want the squeegee to come off and hit the partially cured powder, because it's not weak, but it's definitely soft to some degree. So try this again. This one's a huge pain in the ass. There we go. Alright, and that's pretty much it for these. I mean, you know, if you have a more involved logo, obviously these are more of a pain in the ass, but this is pretty straightforward. We'll take, go do the other two real quick and start throwing the pink powder down on these. What's up, guys? Just want to take a quick minute to interrupt this video and tell you guys about the Facebook page or Facebook group that I started. You can see it here. Just search UKC Space Army. It's mostly just a gathering of powder coaters talking about powder coating things. Mostly people on the channel, obviously. So I post teaser pictures, videos, upcoming things, lots of cool questions and projects going on in there. So feel free to take a look. Also want to remind you to make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 2,000 subs now, so getting real close. So like and subscribe. Thanks. All right, so because we're putting a second coat on, theoretically, or at least on most of it, we're going to end up going with, you know, the dual coat tip, at least in my setup. I know mine's different than most of your guys's. KV we're going to set to about 40, and we're going to be throwing pink over this whole thing. So the front and rear part of this caliper, you know, this being the front, the other side with the extra holes for the bleeder and the brake line, that, you know, we're going to call that the back. We're going to coat that with the same nozzle on the same exact settings in an effort to not have any variation, because this does have metallic in it, or a pearl in it, and I don't want there to be a bunch of variance in that, which you could get from going back and forth between tips or changing settings. So this color is pretty straightforward. It lays nice, simple to deal with. It's just a kind of a pastel pink color. I don't know the best way to explain this actual color. You're going to make sure that you get inside here well, and then the heads of your bolts. Definitely don't want to forget those. So I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but the logo is still very, very visible. become even more visible, of course, once we start curing this. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take this and put it in the oven. The oven's already on. I only have it set to about 300 degrees right now. I'm going to put this at the top of the oven towards the front where it's, you know, my air in this oven's not circulated, so that's the area that is the coolest in the oven. That'll give me the most margin for air time-wise, because we're going to put these in, get it to flow out, and then pull all the vinyl off. So we'll get to that part right now. I figure I'll show you a front of the rear caliper. You know, just like I said, no difference. This is all going to be shot the exact same. You will notice an issue sometimes where you'll get these little dots. You might have seen it right when I first started spraying this. You get these little dots, and that's all that is, a static buildup from you putting the vinyl down. Essentially, it's from the transfer tape. When you pull the transfer tape, it makes that. You can actually get rid of that by rubbing like on the back of this with a dryer sheet. Would get rid of it and do the exact same for you. So now that that's all on, we'll get all these in the oven and get the flow out started on them so we can pull all this vinyl. Okay, now that we got these things to the point of flow out, this is the not fun part. You take an X-Acto, you pull one corner, and these lines will look a little bit weird right now. Don't worry about that for right now. Just like that. But you only have a few seconds to do this. That is the one downside to doing them this way. You have a very limited window of time to work within. But we're gonna keep going. I'm doing this one's technically next in line, so I just gotta do it. The bigger calipers, of course, take longer. And hopefully you guys can see this. Okay, and I gotta go back in the oven to keep curing. Try a front caliper here. And then one of the things, I rarely have this problem, but if you do have this problem where you get a piece of the wrong color, like say I got pink on the black here, you can cure this a little bit more and then pull it out and grab a Q-tip with some acetone on it and knock that piece off. You can also just do a little light color sanding and then clear coat the whole thing. These are going to get clear coated as well. I'm trying to get all these out of here in a hurry, just like that.
by now you should have at least known. It's funny, I'm mad famous for being unknown.